That's the stuff that I favour, mainly hemp, a little bit of maize in there, a few maggots in there, live and dead ones, chopped up mainline boilies, fusion or maplate are my two favourites, and a few pellets as well to stodge it right up. But believe it or not, that isn't stodgy enough at the moment. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit of this stuff to it. That's the Dynamite Amino Black ground bait. Any ground bait's excellent for it, but I like this because it darkens the whole thing up and gives a really nice dark cloud in the water. And that's the key to it. Not losing anything out the back of the spod and creating that cloud effect. It definitely brings the fish in quicker. So we just add a little bit of that to our mix. The nice thing about this is if you overdo it and it goes too sticky and it won't come out the spod, you just add more water and then it stodges it back up again. So that's, put hardly any in there, and that's just about enough. It's because of the big holes in the spods we're using, it's going to clear really quickly out the spod. And you'll notice when I'm spodding, I'm going to flick the tip of the rod a few times, and what that does is that lifts the spod up to the surface, just the back flicks up to the surface and back down again. So you're almost shaking the gear out the back of the spod. You don't want to be flicking it too hard that you're pulling the spod along the surface. You're just flicking up the back of the spod and just dropping that bait out. So you want every grain, especially when we're fishing at over 100 yards as Joe is here, you want every grain to get out to the fish. There's no point losing half of it halfway out. So I'm going to wash that lot off and show you what this setup can do. Right, so what I'm going to do first of all is just wet this braid up because it is very thin. It's liable to get in horrendous wind knots if you cast it when it's dry. So we just splash the spool up with plenty of water, waterlog the braid, and that's going to stop any problem. If you can see there, I've already got it clipped up on the spool. That's clipped up just past the gap, well over 100 yards out, and that's where Joe wants that bait dropped, just on the back of the bar out there. So it's clipped up. I always fish against the clip. Once I've got the range right, I put the line in the clip. When the spod is right next to the float out on the surface, I put it in the clip, wind it back in, and then every cast is going to go the same distance, and I want to drop everything as close together as humanly possible. So, you know, even though we think we're dropping it on a dustbin lid, at that range it's going all over the place. It really is. So the more accurate you can get, the better. For now, I'm just going to put it in the gap, roughly in the middle of the gap out there. I've got no marker float out, so it's important to get everything where you want it to be. You don't want to be turning round, picking stuff out of the spod and then going back to the water. You want it all to hand, so you can go straight down into the bucket, fill up the spod just with that hand. I see other people using this hand to fill the spod up with. That's no good at all. You get out of a rhythm. So just push it down into the spod with your left hand and then whack back out again. So just fill that up against the side of the bucket. 2/3 fill it. Don't want to go any more than that, especially if you're going for range, because it'll wobble about too much. The drop wants to be the same every time, about half the distance of the rod, so roughly down to the spigot. And I just use a nice smooth backwards and forwards stroke. Rod up in the air, hits the clip, and then just laying it down on the surface. And it was what I meant about the flicking. You give it a couple of flicks, just bob the spod, on the surface a few times, because if you wind the spod back in with stuff in it, all you're doing is leaving a trail of bait towards you over the top of the line, which is the worst thing you can do. Just get that up to the top. There it is. And once he's out the water, if you keep your winding roughly consistent, he will just fizz along the top of the water there. And you'll see the drop, he's just coming up to my hand like that, into the bucket, nice and quick. Fill it against the side of the bucket, same sort of distance. Grip the rod really hard right on the butt, and out she goes. Hits the clip, back in roughly the same position.